I think I pressed the right button. Welcome. Hey, I'm Brian Canlis. I am here in Seattle at Canlis Restaurant. Some know me, some don't. I run this restaurant. It's my grandparents built it 70 years ago. We have been doing our thing ever since on this one little spot. And I joined Will and Anthony to host the Welcome Conference about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm thrilled to be here as a part of the conference we're doing now virtually on Grit. And it's maybe the coolest thing that I get to do is the relationships that I get to form. And I've invited 3 incredible people to join me to have this conversation. The first is Nina Compton from New Orleans, though I understand right now you're in Portland.
Yes.
Because you're a judge on Top Chef this year, which is so cool.
Yes.
If you haven't read Helen Rosner's profile of Nina in the New Yorker, it's maybe one of my favorite articles I've read this year. But it just tells your story as really one of the greatest chef, one of the greatest chefs in New Orleans right now, and your heart and soul behind what you do. And gosh, you're a James Beard winner, and the list goes on. So Nina, thanks for being here. Chris Shepard, I think you're the only one I've never met in person, Chris, which makes me a little sad. But Chris, you are Houston food. When I think of Houston, I think of you. When I think of a big heart, I think of you. You grew up in Nebraska. You're the one guy who went from the kitchen at Brennan's to being on the dining room floor with us dining room people, which is awesome. And then back to the kitchen. But you're the Southern Smokes Foundation, which you founded, I think about 5 years ago. Yep. You guys have raised literally millions of dollars. And I'm excited to learn more about that and to explore that. Just awesome. And then Roy Choi, are you the godfather of the food truck? I love your story of starting Kogi back in 2008. Anytime your name was in an article, I want to read it. Your whole posture around how obstacles are a gift in our own stories, and then what you've done with local, and now even relaunching it. Super exciting. Most of you have seen all 3 of these folks on TV and many different places. Thank you for joining the Welcome Conference panel on Grit. Excited you're here. Okay, let's kick it off. I want to start asking you all the same question. Can you go take us back and tell us the story of what the last 6 to 8 months has been like for you and your businesses, and how has Grit played a role in that story? Nina, can you kick us off?
Yeah, let's say March 15th, I think that was a very polarizing moment for all of us in this country. And I think that I never thought that we would be where we are right now. And I remember back in March seeing the virus spread from, Asia to Europe, and all these countries started shutting down. And I'm like, there's no way that we're going to shut down. I'm like, this is America. We'll figure it out. We'll be okay. And we had just come off Mardi Gras, which is a really big, busy time for us. And the city's bustling. We're really busy. We had all these, private events booked. And we're expecting 2020 to be like the year that we're just going to crush it. And then the mayor announced schools are going to close. Then we had a curfew. Then we had to close the restaurant by 9 p.m. Everybody had to be out of the restaurant by 9 p.m. And then the next day it was takeout only. And everything was happening so quickly, I couldn't even wrap my head around the first announcements. And it was just by hour, things just started to change drastically. So we decided to shut our restaurants down. And that was a really hard moment for me because I had 120 people between both restaurants. And to sit down.
And your restaurants, I should have said it earlier, but it's Compare Le Pen and Bywater American Bistro.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So closing both the restaurants with 120 staff, I was really upset. I was, as a leader and as a chef, I think we have this role of having all the answers. If somebody says, "Hey, chef, what's the plan for today?" I'm like, "I don't know, guys. There's a pandemic, on our heels. I don't have the answer." And it was very frustrating because I was a deer in headlights because everybody's looking at me like she's freaking out. She doesn't want to say anything, but I didn't know what to do. So we decided to close both restaurants and just figure this out because things were just happening really quickly. And we didn't have that much information also back in March. There wasn't a lot of information. It was literally 6 feet apart. People weren't wearing masks in March, so we were just like, let's close until we figure this out. And we closed for Bywater American Beach was closed for about 2.5 months. Compella Pen is still closed. We're going to open up next month. But we took that time off to really make sure when we did reopen, we reopened safely, not just for us, but for our staff as well. And during that time, we went from doing takeout, farmers' produce bags. We were doing all these things, just changing things day by day until we felt like the business model would make sense. And back in June, when we were able to have dine-in, we decided to do one table for the night. And people like, "You're crazy, one table for the night." And the reason why we did that is because we wanted to have, we're reopening this restaurant in a different model in the middle of a pandemic. And June 1st, we reopened with one table and it was a two-top. And we did a tasting menu only, which is not our normal format. And it was just that table. We didn't turn that table. They had the entire restaurant to themselves for the night because we were scared. I didn't want to, make the wrong move and then, somebody got sick or something. I was really freaking out trying to reopen this restaurant.
But Nina, isn't it, as a business person, restaurateur,
Yeah.
won't you'll lose more money opening with one table than just being closed?
Yes.
So why was that the right decision?
Because we wanted to reopen safely. Because again, we didn't have that much information. We were told 6 feet apart, do all these things. And we were just trying to get our footing properly. But also, it wasn't at that moment for that month that we did the one table only. It wasn't really about making money. It was about creating a moment for people that were trapped in their houses for a long time, that were scared to come out. We were creating a safe space for them to come and have dinner and have a joyous moment because there was a lot of negative things in the news every day. People were dying, people were getting sick.
Yeah, we wanted to give people hope.
Yes, and
and your own staff hope, it sounds like.
Yes, and the beautiful thing about that is that people felt safe, not just the guests, but our staff. And we created really beautiful moments for a lot of people, including myself, because we were doing takeout and it was just like this empty dining room with no soul, no laughter, no glasses clinking. And to have our first table come in, we had beautiful, because we would ask our guests, "Do you have any musical requests?" And they had a whole playlist which we had for them. And we had this couple that came and they said, "Can you turn the music up?" And they were dancing in the dining room. So there was some really beautiful moments during that time. So it's, for me to create a little bit of happiness in my little space, I was happy to do that.
Yeah, and it was worth it. It meant you lost more money than ever in a time when you were already losing money. But we keep asking ourselves this question here. We're a for-profit business, but what role does a for-profit business have in a season like this? And so we continue to try to challenge ourselves that that losing money may be the best thing for my staff and my community. And that's cool that you dug down and went for it. I bet that was a really cool thing.
Yeah, it was satisfying.
Yeah.
able to do what I love, which was cooking and creating a special moment for people. And that just gave me the satisfaction of, and also the hope to like really push through and try to survive during this pandemic. Yes, we lost money during that first month,
Yeah.
and the goal was to stay open, not to close. And that was something that really gave all our staff that driving force of like, we have to make it.
Chris, tell me your story.
It's going to go all over the board right about now. You know, I think it's like Nina, you know, they had Mardi Gras. We have this little thing called the rodeo in Houston, Texas, which is not quite like what you think. I think it really struck this city really hard when they canceled the rodeo, because you're talking about a stadium, like a concert every night that has 75,000 people in it. And, you know, there's 100,000 people outside. And I think it really hit the city of Houston when Lizzo got canceled. So it was one of those things like everybody's like, oh, this is real. And, you know, when we shut it down, it was one of these things that like, you know, I felt like I knew it was going to happen. So we had all of our managers together, talked about how we were going to do this, like how much, you know, pay cut we're taking it, like how we're getting staffed by, like everything. And so we had a small one day window of a game plan because I didn't realize it was going to happen as fast as it did. But I'm glad we talked about it. But it was literally going around and furloughing all of our staff and going to each one of the restaurants. And I felt like I did something wrong.
How many staff members was that?
180. So between the 4 restaurants and going in and having a conversation with each staff, literally tears running down my eyes, like I got punched in the face because I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm supposed to be the one that's supposed to know. And just like Nina said, like everybody's looking at me and it's like, hey, we'll get through this. You know, they say it's only 2 weeks. And little did I know we were going to be this long into it. But, you know, we shut down all the restaurants into to-go things. We combined UB Preserve and 1/5 into one restaurant and Georgia James and Hay Merchant into another, focused on to-go, which our city was very, very supportive of. And then it just got to the point where I looked at things and I looked at our local grocery store, really. I looked at H-E-B and I was like, look, they're doing all these pre-packaged meals. And I looked at my pastry chef, who's our purchasing director, and I was like, I need you to buy as many of those metal containers with the lids on them as you can possibly get. She said, I can get 2 pallets. I was like, bring them on, let's go. And what we found that people will come in and get a hot meal once a week, but they will get, if you give them composed meals that all they have to do is throw in their oven, they'll get 10, they'll get 12, they'll get as many as they possibly can because they have to feed their kids, they have to feed all, you know, their families. And so we started doing that. And then I got a call from H-E-B, our grocery store, and they said, hey, would you mind or would you like to produce meals for the grocery stores as well? And I was like, wait, what? And they said, we will sell your, we call them take and bakes, and give you 100% of the money. Because we realize that we're in a glut right now. Everybody's going to the grocery store and nobody's going to restaurants, and we need to make sure that restaurants are taken care of. And so I was like, wait a minute. So if I sell this for $12, you're giving me $12. And they're like, yep.
Wow.
And still to this day, that's how it works. We're actually now moving into, we went from 10 stores to 20 stores, and now we're going to the point where now they're going to start delivering for us, and we're becoming part of their program from here on out. We've gone through all of it. Are you
still doing this out of your own kitchens?
Well, since we started to open the restaurants, because we're doing it in Georgia James and Hay Merchant, and I shut down the other 2 restaurants and brought everybody into one restaurant, which is 10,000 square feet. The 2 are combined, Hay Merchant and Georgia James. So I have 2 kitchens, 2 dining rooms. And we went to a 2-man team, 4 on, 4 off, so that if anybody contracted the virus, we could switch to just a normal, one shift. And we did that for a while. And then I decided that I found a little spot that we could use as a commissary, built that out as cheap as possible. And just with my equipment that I had laying around, and we put that together. I had to buy a double stack oven, and that was it. And so now I took employees that normally probably wouldn't have the job and gave them hours there. So now HEB we're on the point where they're going to pick up and deliver for us. We're going back to 10 stores, then to 20 stores, then 40 stores, then 60 stores. So, but now it's a revenue stream that we didn't see before. And it really worked out. And then, living in Houston, we opened up pretty early, considered to everybody else. May 1st, we could open, and I decided not to do that until the end of May. Which, 6 feet apart, we went through so many safety protocols. I had glass dividers that are 5 foot long and 4 foot high. I've had 30 of them built, and we just kind of slide those through the dining room. You can't even see them, and it breaks up airflow. I just wanted to be as safe as possible. Each one of the restaurants has those, and we just wanted to be as safe as possible for our staff. Our guests are going to come in, but I wanted to make sure that our staff was completely comfortable. We were lucky enough to get PPP, and I brought every single person back because I didn't feel that paying some people and not others was the right thing to do. So we just brought everybody back. And we have fought since then. They changed the laws on that. It was 2 days before ours ran up. So we have just fought every way possible to maintain all the staff that we possibly can. From doing Zoom classes in our home, I do about 4 of those a week. It seems like we have a full camera crew that comes in and sets up, and that's just an extra revenue stream. We're now at the farmer's market. That's an extra revenue stream. And we're just finding all these ways to make it work so that we can still continue to employ all of our staff. And, because I see both sides of it. Having Southern Smoke and starting Southern Smoke, which is our foundation that we started 5 years ago. And it was originally to bring awareness and money towards the MS Foundation. One of my old friends and sommeliers was diagnosed with MS. And so in 2015, we started that organization just to raise money. And then in 2017, when Hurricane Harvey came through Houston, we changed the focus of that. We would do a festival every year, just have a bunch of chefs come in from around, sit out in the back parking lot, smoke meats and have some music and some booze and have a good time. And we were able to, in 2017, figure out a way with our foundation to have people apply online and then it go through a verifying committee and then go to an awards committee. And we were able to, we took in a little over 200 applications and we were able to grant 139 families a little over $500,000. So when COVID came through, we were already set up for this. Little did I know that this was going to happen like this, but we've been able to, as up to today, take care of 1,930 families for $3.24 million. And now have a fund set up for Chicago as well. We had a wonderful silent donor. I still don't know who this person is or this group or whoever it is. But we have a Southern Smoke Chicago that's set up where there's at this point $3.8 million sitting in there for the city of Chicago and Cook County for anybody in the hospitality or the restaurant, bar, and coffee shop. So we need people in Chicago to really understand that this is there because it's so easy to apply. All you have to do is have worked in the industry for 6 months and you can apply. If you're in a time of crisis, this is where you go. You fill out an application, someone talks to you, and then they cut you a check. I don't know how much easier it can get. And Chicago has been the one that, it took a long time for Houston to understand what Southern Smoke was. So I get it, but it's there for the city of Chicago. So if anybody's on there, I mean, I would just go.
That's incredible.
You don't have a job, make some money. Like, this is how you do this. It can help.
Roy, is it true that you were the anonymous donor?
It's still anonymous, Roy. Don't tell anybody.
Sorry to out you, but oh, Roy, share your story.
I mean, first of all, love to Chris and Nina. Amazing what you guys have been doing. I had kind of a very unique situation because I have a life that spans many different quadrants, almost like the four of us on the screen here. I had kind of like four different reactions to everything that happened in March. On one end, I'm a chef and I run restaurants, and those had to close. So I had very similar situations as what Chris and Nina have gone through, and definitely thinking of the staff and everything that they explained. On the other end, I'm also a street cook, you know, and I also represent the streets and the neighborhoods and the interconnection between us and our fan base and social media and our relationship and our conversation with each other. That in relation to the social injustices that are being exposed right now, that is something that I grew up around and that I'm very aware of as far as access to food, who gets to eat food, who gets to go to our restaurants, what type of food is being served in neighborhoods. And so what was unique for us at Kogi was that when the pandemic hit, we kind of just locked in and doubled down to what we have been doing the last 12 years, which is going even deeper into feeding the streets. I've never really been consider myself a businessman first. I grew up as an immigrant kid in the restaurant business, where even on good days, I remember my parents still paying bills, you know, COD. You know, I don't remember any time where we were really that far ahead, you know, even when things were thriving. So it just made me look at you know, I've always had this thing. And when growing up, I've always had this vision of life where, you know, money is not important. It's a weird thing, I know, but when I was actually a chef, like when I worked and had a job, I was not great at managing the P&L. The only reason that I kept my job was that I was able to deliver on the flavor at the end. So people would be pissed at me, like all the executive vice presidents and whoever's would be pissed at me because my numbers wouldn't be the best. But then I could romanticize them with a dish at the end and they forget all about it. So I've always been this way. I've never really been that great with numbers, and I've always, I think partly is because just my intel, the way that I approach learning, but also the fact that I've always had this belief that that food is more than just profit and loss. It's it's something very spiritual. It's something that we share with each other. It's if we invest in this river of spirituality, that it will all work out. And many people saw that as childish, and a little naive. But when the pandemic hit, Kogi, what I realized was I was sitting in my car and we were feeding some frontliners at clinics in Skid Row. And I was trying to figure out, what do we do next? And I put up this kind of random Instagram post about, everything I just mentioned about, what if we took profit out of the equation? What if we just feed each other? What if we just take care of each other? And so I put out a post that said, if you guys Venmo or donate to this fund, we created a Venmo account. If you donate to this fund, all of that money will go directly to feeding people that need it, that either lost their jobs or that are down and out right now or need food or are hungry, that are on the streets, frontliners that are feeding those that are on the streets. And we had an enormous response, crazy response. And all of our fans that go to our stops every day in the different neighborhoods all throughout Southern California, they doubled down and showed up, and they started donating to this fund. And, you know, we ended up feeding tens of thousands of people, you know, through this mutual exchange of the only purpose of so we lost pretty much 50% of our business in the Kogi truck because half of our business was catering, and all of the catering accounts had to cancel, obviously, because there's no gathering. And our food is $2 and $6. So there's really, even before the pandemic, our business model was never really designed as a profit center. Kogi has always been this river that just, as long as we can be healthy and feed ourselves and keep paying the bills and keep generating love and smiles across the streets, that will keep us alive. I want to get to this point because, like, I thought that was a powerful thing before the pandemic, you know, when it was just this gut kind of poetic vision, you know. But when the pandemic hit, I realized how powerful it could be. And I realized that maybe this is not the complete model of what things could be, but I saw the fact that when March hit, we were sick as a world, you know. We were sick. Everything that we had built up until now, I know we wanted to go back and we're missing the things that we had, but we have to be honest with ourselves too, that it led to a breaking point, and that there were things that were sick, that were broken, that we were never willing to confront until we were forced to confront them. And so, but what I found in putting out this post is that there is a way that we can live without forgetting about each other. You know? And so that was that there is a way for a business to succeed where it is about taking care of each other. And those, in the 5 months since March, for 5 straight months, we were able to keep our staff employed. We were able to feed tens of thousands of people, probably almost 100,000 people. We were able to continue to bring positivity and a little bit of hope to people that were in very dire situations. And we were able to figure out how to survive without sacrificing the things that we believed in, you know, and without taking shortcuts, and actually taking the long road and going to the things that we were sometimes forced to maybe not pay as much attention to in a normal society. And that was making no profit. The money that comes in goes directly to feeding people and just paying our staff and paying the hard fixed costs. Yeah, and so I don't have all the answers. I just know that was sustainable, I guess is what I'm saying. And that could maybe be a piece to a whole recipe, you know. I've always looked at certain ills and things within our society as a recipe, right? Like, we're all chefs here, we run restaurants. Like, we seem to be focused on only very specific things within that recipe without paying attention to all of the other little things within a whole recipe. And if we use that analogy towards the way we live with each other, you know, we have to value all of the smaller things and the little things in order for the whole thing to work. And I was just, for me, it's been a pretty unique experience because it proved to me that these things are powerful. It didn't solve everything, but it proved that because you know why I want to say this is that I was in a bubble and then in a position where all of the other stuff didn't matter anymore, right? Because everything had stopped, society had stopped, all of the things around us were crumbling, businesses were closed, we had no ability to do the things that we were so busy doing all the time in life. So it was like I had this very protected space to live this very naive, you know, dream of just feeding people in this barter exchange, you know, spiritual moment. And it worked, you know. And so I come out of it now, holding on to that and never forgetting that. And so that way, when we do start to turn the engine back on, that those things will have to have value in everything that we do, because it proved to me that it works. And I don't know, I just hope that, you know, whoever's listening here, if you're having your challenges, that maybe this is a chance for us to double down on those things, you know, that everything doesn't have to be a profit and loss, you know, that maybe we are being forced to not move so fast. And that maybe it is a moment where we have to look around and look at who came to our restaurants, what were we really doing? How much really, if you pulled away the veil, were we that successful to begin with? Is the model itself broken? So those are just questions. Again, I don't have all the answers. Those are just questions from all of this.
I love it. Thanks for sharing all that, Roy. Okay, a question to any of the three of you who want to answer this one. You've obviously shown incredible grit and resilience during this time, the last 8 months or 6 or whatever it is. What is a story from your own past, either personally or professionally, where that resilience, that grit, where you discovered it in your own self, and you looked back on that lesson, or you, like Roy, you often would say, I read in an interview with GQ, like, our failures are building blocks of how we launch forward. And I think my own story, I was once arrested for shoplifting when I was like 18, and it completely saved my life, which is a weird way to look at it. It was the failure that changed the course of my life in a great direction. But this isn't about me, but is there a story in your lives where you discovered your own grit, you discovered your own resiliency, that gave you the confidence when you had that deer in the headlights moment that you talked about, and the whole staff is looking at me and I'm the leader and I need to dig down and lead them out of it, but I know I'm capable of this because I have that in me? Who's got one?
That's a really, really tough question to answer. But I think it just goes back to having that self-confidence. And like you said, like for me, it was stepping out of the kitchen a long time ago and then working in the front of the house. And, everybody told me there was no way I was ever going to get back. That once I made that step, it was over. And it was getting back in there, but made me want to be a better teacher and a better person and a better leader and a better everything. And the one thing that's come from this is that the team that we have around you, that you put around you, is how you become who you are. And I'll never forget after Harvey, boy, and they remind me of it all the time. I wanted to start this sandwich delivery shop where, there was nobody that could go downtown there was no restaurants. Downtown had been flooded out. So I was like, we'll start the sandwich delivery shop and we'll have a menu. We'll call it UB Sandwich. And that failed miserably.
Wow.
Because we didn't have our wheels in place. And now my team will never forget to remind me about that when I'm like, hey, let's think about all the stupid things we could do. Let's go. And yeah.
What did you learn from that failure that made what you're currently doing? Like, what did you take from it that's making you more successful today?
I learned not always just to be bullheaded and run through the wall, that there's probably a door. And to find that door and to have the conversations with the team first and figure out and strategize. Because we sat down and I told them when all this happened, I was like, all that stupid shit that we talked about, that I said, let's not ever talk about that again. Let's talk about it now. And how do we as a group make it better? And so that's kind of where we're at. And I definitely I had somebody tell me this morning, hey, let's not sandwich shop this. And it's like, thanks. That's
when you when you crashed through the wall instead of opening the door, were you doing that alone and not with your team? As like, was it you trying to do too independent?
No, my team will definitely follow me through. And they will probably push, you know, and because everybody's always, they're like, yeah, let's go, let's just go, let's go. And it's like, that's not always the mentality.
Got it.
And
oh, sorry, great. Nina, I was wondering, do you have a story of either failure or resilience that you were able to draw on in this time?
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing has been, like Roy said, just stopping and thinking. Because, you know, as you run a business, everything's very fast paced in restaurants. And sometimes you don't really think things through. So having that time just to pause and really regroup. And also my driving force has been my team, because these people, again, are relying on me to pull it together and make this happen. So I know that they're, you know, these are people who are my family. These are people I spend hours with. I know their kids, I know their grandkids, I know everything about them. And that has been my driving force of getting the restaurants reopened, you know, stabilized a little bit, and bringing my team back. I think that has been the biggest point for me, because when I moved to New Orleans, I didn't know anybody. It was just my husband and I. You know, I developed this family around me, people that were inviting me to crawfish boils, and you know, they'd bring me a quart of gumbo because they cooked gumbo over the weekend. So that for me was like a very personal connection, and really my driving force.
Wow. Okay, I'm looking. I can't believe how fast this is going. And I want to give you all a chance to answer this one last question. I'm going to start with Roy on this one. And Roy, you already started to answer it in the direction that you were going last time, which I love. But what are the things that you're being forced to do today that you will choose to do tomorrow? And when you think about your answer, it's my brother. So I run this restaurant with my brother, Mark. I'm the youngest of three brothers. He's the middle brother. And our oldest brother is the black sheep in the family. He's a pastor of a church. And so he joined the cloth while Mark and I went into business. And he's the one who called Mark and I one day and challenged us with that question of, don't you dare let this time pass without learning how you as individuals and you as a company will permanently change for the better. How is the industry going to permanently change for the better? What are the things that you've uncomfortably forced yourselves to do that you've discovered now bring so much life or so much goodness? So, Roy, I'm going to start with you. What are the things that you're being forced to do today that you wouldn't have otherwise done that you're going to choose to do tomorrow?
Well, for me, I've been forced to continue to believe in the things that I've been standing up for a while, which is the inequities of food access within our communities, you know. And the reason why I say that as my answer is because before this year, sometimes those things didn't seem as sexy or important to many that were already doing well, you know. But what we found in this pandemic is, especially with chefs and restaurants, is that we're capable of so much more than just running a restaurant. You know, I mean, Chris even touched on it about what he's doing, but there's all the chefs across the country. I mean, we all know when they couldn't open their doors, they pivoted to feeding meals to people hot meals to people that need it, or packaged thousands and thousands of meals. And these are situations and people that were already, that they themselves probably needed help, but they found another second wind within them to forget about their own personal problems and look at something that was bigger and larger than themselves, and realize that they have the resources and the skill and the knowledge to make an effect. You know, not everything in this world has to be only, you know, intellectual and cerebral. You know, we have to build a world, I think, based around heart and love and caring, you know, and being honest with each other, and exposing our wounds and figuring out how to heal those wounds, and investing in things that are not just these political large think clouds, but that are day in, day out, every little day. And we as the hospitality industry, we're built for that, because our whole world is about the little things, the little details, the mise en place, all the little steps that lead to the experience. So for me, it was really believing in, because a lot of the things that I have been expressing over the last decade have resonated with those that it feeds and that it affects, but has kind of kept me on the fence with the culinary world in a weird way. You know, I've had feet in two different worlds, you know, because on one end, I'm here with you guys at the Welcome Conference, but on the other end, I'm representing the exact things that sometimes our industry is contributing to, you know. So I'm just going to continue to fight for those things.
Thank you. I'm glad you're fighting for me. Chris, how would you answer that question?
Real quick, because I don't know if I'll get another chance to say this. Thank you so much for having me on the Welcome Conference, and really putting me in like a Zoom class with 3 people that I really look up to. And so I appreciate that more than you guys know. I think business will be business. I think, you know, you'll make decisions all the time in your business and our business day-to-day life that will work or not, right? The Zoom classes, the HEB stuff, sausage companies, whatever it may be. But I think the most important thing for me is Southern Smoke and continuing to drive that to the point. I'd like to know that in the future, folks in the hospitality industry have a safety net, that they have a place to go. I mean, one of the greatest things for me personally was we really forced this for a long time. That kind of came at a time when it was needed, but in June, we finally struck the deal with Mental Health America and the University of Houston to provide free mental health care for everybody in the hospitality in the state of Texas and their kids. And I would like to take that across the nation. And you know, each state is different because each state has to be sanctioned off. But I know like Louisiana, LSU is looking at doing this program as well. And I would like to have that go across the country. And I would like to keep continuing to push and making sure that our industry, anybody, when they become in a time of crisis, when they have a problem, that there's someplace to go. And that's very important to me, and it always has been, because, you know, as a young cook, like, I didn't have insurance, I didn't have a way. If something happened, I was out. You know, I wouldn't know what to do. You know, having the choice of making the decision of healthcare, going to the doctor, paying your rent, paying your electric bill, getting food for your kids, that shouldn't be a problem. And you need a place to go if that happens. And so I just want to see this grow. I didn't think this is where we would be 5 years ago. I just didn't. I didn't know that we would have donated over $5 million in 5 years. Like, that's insane to me. I want people to be good and to have a clear vision when they're working in this industry and not have those fears, because dark nights are dark nights. And I don't want to see that for our industry. There has to be a better way. And so I hope that with Southern Smoke, we can push to find a better way.
Well, thank you. Gosh, on behalf of our entire industry, yeah, thanks for that work you're doing.
We can all do this together.
Take it across the country. That's awesome.
I mean, we went from Texas or Houston to everywhere. So,
Nina, close us out.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow in the same vein, I think that we are all going through a really dark time. And like Chris said, we all need each other and we can do this together. I think that, what I'm doing in New Orleans is I am extending myself to, charities like Son of the Saints that helps fatherless boys. I do cooking classes with them, which is really fun for me. I'm teaching them about cooking healthy and, just being a mentor to these boys that have, such a bright future. And I think that's something that we really have to channel our energy into creating something positive that will grow into something beautiful, down the road, because it is, a lot of people are going through a lot of tough times. I was reading a lot about, like Chris said, mental health. We talk about depression during these times, and lending those resources to my staff as well about mental health, depression, how to reach out. I think that's very important right now because a lot of people don't have the outlets or the access to that. And I think that's really important. I think for me personally, being quarantined was a little bit different as a chef because I was so used to my day-to-day life. But it made me kind of step back and say, you know what? I want to have a better work ethic, in my company, and for everybody just to have a different outlook. And it's about self-care. I think that's a very important thing right now that a lot of people just don't know how to do and don't know how to start. And it's important now because that's something that we need to kind of smooth out the rough edges. So we gotta take care of each other.
Nina Compton, Chris Shepard, Roy Choi, the three of you are saving, rescuing, inspiring, and helping mold our industry for tomorrow in the hardest time we've ever been. I'm glad you are leaders, and I'm honored to lead alongside you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for what you're doing, and goodbye.
Thank you for having us.